I feel like I'm back in Guatemala, where at all hours of the night the cows mooed and the roosters crowed. This is good. Do you want a quick test to find out if somebody that you may not know is from a Western culture or an Eastern culture? Researchers have asked a series of questions to determine and explore the nature of the differences between those of the West and those of the East. To discover, are there differences in the culture of how we approach relationships, our perceptions of life, of people? So here's one of the top questions researchers asked. How would you answer this statement? I love my mother, but... Mom, don't watch today. My mother likes to watch the services online. So if you ask a person who is raised in a Western culture, the researchers found, they would answer that question dramatically different from someone who was raised in the East. And today, on Mother's Day, every one of us could probably come up with a quick answer or response to the statement, how would you complete this statement, I love my mother, but? Could you? You've got 10 seconds, write it down. I love my mother, but she drives me crazy. I love my mother, but oh my goodness, she can't go. I love my mother, but she has a gangrene thumb and she can't even grow a weed. I love my mother, but her love is a smothering love. Those are Western answers, responses to that question. In other words, Western culture, what comes after I love my mother, but, is a qualifier, is a negative remark. A statement that our love for our mother is somehow tempered by the knowledge of our mother's foibles and failures and frailties. But the Easterner's answer is dramatically different. Typically, it goes something like this. I love my mother, but I'll never be able to show her just how much. I love my mother, but I'll never be able to repay her for all she's done. I love my mother, she has done so much, but she has done so much for me all my life, I can never thank her enough. I love my mother, but she works way too hard for our family. The Eastern response does not use the word but to water down the love. It doesn't use it to qualify or condition the love. It doesn't use it as an eraser to delete what you just said by saying, I love my mother. But the first expression of I love my mother issues in increased revelations about the belovedness of the mother and the connectedness of the child with the mother. So why is our Western cultural tendency to dilute expressions of love with some sort of criticism? Almost a positive sort of trying to put a spin on a complaint about mom. Some sort of qualify or condition to the love. Why is the Western tendency to diminish our love by trying to put somehow some distance between mom and us? Love is, I don't know if you've ever noticed, love is not ever supposed to be safe. Neither is love supposed to be easy. Love is not supposed to be some kind of 50-50 equal partnership or reciprocal relationship. The ones we love, I don't know if you've ever noticed, the ones we love are not supposed to be perfect. Only my mother is perfect. But it is the choice to love others as we're called to love that matures and humbles each one of us. In this week's New Testament reading from John's first letter, John insists on two things about God. He says, first, God is love, in verse 8. God's presence and power are known and revealed in this world through every expression of his love for his creation. And secondly, John highlights a specific loving action that God has taken on our behalf. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. Verse 9. This is God's love as parental, saving love. The God whose love for his Son Jesus is so great that his love saves his entire creation. Knowing these two things about God is the basis for all of God's children to then live in love. Since God loves us so much, we also ought to love one another, John wrote. In fact, it's in this expression of love for our brothers and sisters that we bring God's presence into this world, and God's perfect love is made complete in us for all to see. Love changes us. But only if we can only love if we are somehow connected to that source, God himself, who is love. And only if we, as Jesus said, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, if we remain, if we abide, if we live in his love, day by day, moment by moment. The presence of a parent's love in their child is a child's whole universe when they're very young. The absence of that love can create a terrible alternative universe for children. I'm sure that some moms might have received today treasured Mother's Day gifts. You know what I mean. Flowers ripped out of the garden. Breakfasts of burnt toast and cold rubbery eggs. Mysterious clay creations that their nature has yet to be determined. Hugs and kisses that came with their own flavors of jam or peanut butter, and hugs of mud or whatever when they were pulling the flowers out of the garden. But I'll bet you that not one mom who received any of those sorts of Mother's Day gifts frowned at the flowers and bemoaned her breakfast or pitched the pottery into the garbage. Not one sticky kiss or muddy hug was rejected, I bet. Love accepts the love that is extended to it, that is offered to it. A child's expression of love for mom on Mother's Day is accepted with an overflowing heart, no matter how imperfect that expression of offered love might be. As children grow up, we all continue, it doesn't matter, I continue to test my mother's love for me all the time. As we grow, we all do that, to a degree. I love my mother, but I ditched school today and I hung out in the mall, and I kind of liked it. I love my mother, but I started using drugs and alcohol, and now I think my life is spiraling out of control. I love my mother, but I'm dropping out of university. I love my mother, but I don't know how to tell her I'm in jail now. How do we respond to expressions of love that are out of our brokenness, so limited and stunted by our human weakness? How? Simple. By simply continuing to love one another, by remaining rooted in God's love for us, no matter what. And at the close of John's Gospel, John, who wrote the first and second and third letters in the New Testament, we read from the first one, the same John, at the close of his Gospel, Jesus is speaking with Peter, the rock, that Jesus named the rock. But he's also Peter the rat. He's also the Peter who denied Jesus 3 times. He's, yes, the Peter who walked on the water out to Jesus on a stormy sea, but he's also the Peter who looked around him at the waves and heard the wind and felt it and got scared and took his eyes off Jesus and sank into the waves. Before Jesus ascended to the Father in heaven, he wanted one final conversation with Peter. And it's one of the most moving, most poignant moments in the whole of the New Testament. Jesus turns to Simon Peter, the one to whom Jesus is about to entrust the birthing of the church in a sense. And he asks him a simple question. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? When Jesus asked Peter if he loves him, Jesus used the New Testament, brand new word for such God love, agape. We talked about that last week, gift love. Agape love is the selfless, all-encompassing, passionate, pure, divine love. Agape love is the love that God has for all of his creation. Agape love is the gift love that sent Jesus into the world that we might be saved through him. So perhaps the real translation goes like this: Simon, do you agape me? Jesus is asking. And Peter responds rather quickly to him. Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. But Peter, hearing Jesus, substituted another word for love. He took out agape, God love, and he put in its place brotherly love. Phileo. Yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. You know that I love you like a brother. It's the warmth, affection, compassionate family love that is very, very common in our world. That's the love that Peter offered to Jesus. It's the love that the world most knows. So Jesus asked him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you agape me? Do you love me the way I love you? Selfless love. And again, Peter answers his master quickly. Yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. You know that I love you. And here's where Jesus shows us another part of the dimension of God's type of gift love, agape love. Jesus then comes down to Peter's level, accepts the best that Peter can offer, and the third time Jesus asks Peter a brand new question, even though it sounds in English exactly the same. Simon, do you love me? Only this time, Jesus took out the word agape and put in phileo. Simon, do you love me like a brother? Do you love me like family? Jesus is saying to Peter and to us, we who are just as broken and as selfish as Peter, if that's the best you're capable of at the time and place and space in your life right now, that's okay. I'll take it. I accept your love, your brotherly love. I welcome your brotherly love. But know that I embrace you with so much more. I embrace you with agape love. The power of agape love is in its grace and compassion. Jesus met Peter exactly where he was. Jesus accepted Peter's love, however bent, however broken, however qualified and conditional it might have been. And this time, Jesus welcomes the sticky kiss. If Jesus proved his agape love by stooping to Peter's level, Peter proved his broken filial love, his brotherly love, by getting exasperated with Jesus for asking him that question the third time. Oh man, Jesus, you know I love you. And he said it the same. You know that I phileo you, Lord. Wow. The love that bends and extends. The love that reaches out and brings in, embraces and welcomes with open arms and open heart no matter what. That is agape love. Pure, unbounded gift love. The love that sent the Son into the world for our redemption, for our being set free from slavery to sin and death, is agape, gift love. Pure, unbounded, passionate, perfect love. A love that destroyed the power of sin and death forever. The love that sacrifices and puts others first. The love that will take rejections and betrayal and still come back for more. That kind of agape love is the sort of love that we start to learn about on our mother's knees when we are so little and we're just born and starting to grow. There are many women in our world who have chosen to not become a mother, or who, for a variety of reasons, have been unable to be a mother, or who have experienced the tragedy and the pain of losing a fetus or a child. But every one of us has had a mother or a mother-type person in our lives. And we can learn from their sort of love. We start to learn about God's love for us and to grow in it. I love the passage of the Old Testament from Hosea, chapter 11. God is speaking to his stiff-necked, stubborn, pig-headed people. Israel. When Israel was a child, I loved him. It was I who taught them to walk. I took them up in my arms. I was to them like those who lift a baby up in their cheek, to press them to their cheek. I bent down to them and I fed them. So much like a mother's love. But whether you can rise to a mother's bent love, to a love that every mother might seek to emulate in their own broken way, such agape love, we need to hear the message of the good news of Jesus Christ. God loves you. Period. God takes you up in his arms and loves you and holds you close and presses you to your cheek, his cheek, and lets you know that you are his. And he is the one who, as Zephaniah says, sings for joy over you. God will bless and welcome your love, no matter how small and broken it may be, and bring it to new heights and new depths of wonder and beauty and care. Do y'all feel like standing?
Sure.
Sure. If you can, please stand. I have a test for you. Or maybe it's more of an experiment, but don't tell Jim. Okay. I want you to first take your hands and touch your fingertips together. Now I know one fingertip's always longer than the rest, so you kind of have to do something with that. All right, so you get your fingertips. Well, what have you done? You've made a bridge. Now turn to the person beside you and do the same thing with one person. And if you've got two people on either side, you can make two bridges. See what I mean? You make two bridges. Here. Bridges. Cool. We're called to make bridges of love. Now, don't sit down. Put your hands back to yourselves again. Keep your fingertips together and now join your thumbs. And as God's type of agape love bends down and meets us where we are, let's do that too. Our fingertips bending down a bit so that now you're kind of nail to nail. And bending down with your thumbs, pointing down. And what do you have? A heart. A heart. Look at this picture on the screen. Oh. There's always a different one in every crowd. Yes, and Jeannie's doing the exact one that's up on the screen. So, you can do it either way. A heart.
I like that one.
God in Christ bent down to us, became one of us, to share his saving love with us. We learn at our mother's knees, and hopefully our mother's and our father's knees. We start learning about this type of godly love, this saving love. And we're all called to build bridges of love with the world, with everyone we meet, a bridge of love. How will we live this week so that people see the love of Jesus in you, in your words, and in your actions? And now you can be seated.